Chica, chica, chica. Okay, so what is the purpose of this video? The purpose of this video is to talk about my experience with farming, animal abuse, and how you can fix the issue. The issue is not so much not having the means to treat animals correctly, because anybody can treat an animal correctly. You can be just as respectful to something that you're going to eat as you can to another person. First of all, understanding that what you're about to eat, especially if it's an animal product, and respecting that and being appreciative of that, it starts there. Now, if you run a small farm operation, the right thing would be for people to support you before any big operation. If you can support a local farmer, or whatever you want to call it, if you're into vegetables, if you're into meat, supporting local is going to limit the chances of you getting any kind of disease, sickness, spoiled product, whatever it may be. Now, oftentimes I've spoke out about buying from big companies and box stores and stuff like that, but I understand that those big box stores buy product in bulk so they can get it almost dirt cheap, and because they're buying so much at one time, the company that's providing the product to them thinks, wow, this is great, I've just sold $1.5 million worth of meat this month or this year, whatever it may be. And then you get wrapped up into the money side of things. But if you would have just backed off and did things more ethically, you would have made more money in the long run, being able to charge a little bit more and making sure that you're putting out a good product for people. The issue that I have is these big companies like Fair Oaks, they start small and they grow and they grow and they grow, and they get so big that they never have the time management-wise to actually manage. They never have the time quality control-wise to... Maybe it's not that they don't have the time, it's more along the lines of they don't want to put the effort into spending the extra money and hiring employees and vetting them and stuff like that to make sure that they're actually going to do what they do. How would I fix the problem based on my experience? Every single line of calves that are being put out to produce some kind of product, raise them, whatever it may be, would have a line supervisor, especially from an organization that big. Every single line at that agency or that facility needs to have a line supervisor when you get that big, that's in charge of every animal in that line. And being in charge of every animal in that line, that means that you need to have documentation set up for every single animal that's on that line. It's not necessarily the fact that you just put an animal in a pen and call it an animal and that's it. That's all. If it, give it a number. Let it be known that it's in this particular facility, this crate. This is what's going on with it, documentation-wise. Actually taking care and caring about the product that you're putting out so that animal doesn't have to live in such a disastrous environment is key. Not just throwing them in a pen and say, it's just a calf, it doesn't matter. You know what, I can see in that instance giving that animal a number. Okay, in this row right here, we've got 200 calves. That's number 54. We need to go check, because last time it seemed like maybe it didn't have enough energy, it wasn't doing so well, maybe it's not getting fed enough, whatever it is. Maybe it's showing early signs of sickness, and we need to pull number 54 out of that, and we need to isolate them somewhere else just to get a vet in so a vet can look at them and stuff like that. I've seen operations where they work very efficiently that way. I was in foster care where a guy had 750 head of cattle by himself and was able to manage the whole entire facility on his own. He had this grass lot over here had cattle that were ready to go to slaughter. This lot over here were ones that were being looked at because, and they were all split up because maybe some of them didn't look very healthy. Maybe he didn't, you don't want your cattle in with all the other stuff that's healthy. So there are ways of controlling these types of operations. I would say, you know what, these right here, these calves right here, need special attention because these are going to be my milking cows. Over here, I've got my beef cows and stuff like that. There are ways that you can put all this stuff in, but facilities get so large they don't care anymore. They can't care anymore because they look at money. They look at the dollar sign. They don't look at what's going on to the animal. They don't look at what's going on with the employees. They don't look at these employees are having to pull 16 to 20-hour shifts because they can't keep up with everything. So now they're leaning to cocaine and methamphetamines and stuff like that just so they can survive, just so they can do their job because they're trying to support their families and stuff like that. But in turn, they're killing themselves in the process. So there's a number of things that can be put in place that they're not doing here. If it was me to fix this situation, let's say today, Fair Oaks called me up and said, come in here and get everything under control. I would go in there and I would vet every single employee that works in that facility. I would go in there and I would vet every single stall, every single cow. I would have a vet in there going through and looking at every single one of them. Check vitals. I want to see how healthy they are. You screwed up, now we're going to fix the problem. And every single line that there's calves and cows would have a line supervisor for that. If you want to be a big company and you want to be a big farming operation, you want to put out mass quantity stuff, you need to be able to pay the piper. You need to be able to put quality control stuff in place that you can make sure these animals are not getting treated unethically, that they are not sick when they're being put in there, that they are treated fairly. If you want to be known as a big name and you want people to pay for your product, and you want to put Fairlife milk out, and you want so many thousands of acres of nothing but cows that are producing product for you, then you need to fork out the money. That's it. If they brought me in today, I would go into the facility, vet every single employee, vet every single animal, vet the entire facility. I would go through and make sure everything was put back up to, not subpar, up to par, if not better. And you go in there and you keep accountability of every single animal that's there. You don't just say, hey, you know what, if those calves die, don't use the main road to dispose of them. Go through the back of the property where nobody can see you and just go dump them out there somewhere. No, you need to know what each one of them are. Hey, number 54 is looking sick. We need to pull them off the line. We caught it early. None of the other one, any of the other ones that are around them, you need to go ahead and check number 55 and number 53 as well. Get the vet in here to look at them because we need to make sure that they're under control as well. That none of, and then maybe even check the other ones around it, based on your own discretion, a supervisory of that line's discretion. If you have animals like that was in that video with Fair Oaks, where there are 50, 100, 200 animals in a line, each line needs to have its own supervisor, and maybe even split in half. Half this line gets a supervisor, and the other half of that line gets a supervisor, and then the employees work that line, whatever it may be. If you want to have an organization that big, you need to have stuff in place to make sure this stuff doesn't happen. If it was me and it was my operation, that stuff would have never went on. And as soon as I would have seen one single employee mistreat one of them animals in some kind of way to where they were throwing them around, animals have fits. They fight. They're animals. They don't want to be in that situation. They want to be with their moms. They want to be over, getting fed and being with their little families and stuff like that. I get it. But we have a need for this type of stuff, and these big companies are not putting the support in place to make sure that we, at the end user, get the best product that we can possibly get, to make sure that these animals are getting taken care of ethically. There's a number of things that can be done that we're not doing, and that's what we should be focusing on. Getting line supervisors in here, quality control pulled back in place, a complete retraining of the entire facility. I mean, complete retraining, revamped from the floor up. That's how I would fix this. Just based on my experience with farming and stuff in general and being in charge of people, I would go in and everything would get redone. There would be no way that I would allow that facility to stay operating if somebody wasn't brought in to retrain the entire facility. It doesn't matter if it was 3 or 4 people, everybody gets retrained. Ethics gets relanced. You go back through all the emergency policies and stuff like that. There is no hiding animals going the back way and stuff if a calf dies or something like that. That animal needs to be disposed of properly. If it's sick and it cannot be used, it needs to have a special place that it goes to in a controlled environment. Just like when a nurse is done with a needle, she drops it in a controlled environment so it can be disposed of properly. Not throw it on some four-wheeler that other people are going to ride on and other animals may ride on. Maybe you're going to use that four-wheeler or that UTV or something like that for the vet to use to travel around on the property. That, and you need to have your own special equipment and area to dispose of stuff like that, and not using the same thing that everybody else and all the other animals are going to use. There's a number of things here that can be done. In this operation, when I lived on this guy's farm, he had 750 head of cattle, he had 250 head of sheep, and what would end up happening is all of them had their own facilities. He knew where all of them were. He knew every number. He knew what was going on with every single one of them. He would know, you know what, these over here they got to have a little bit more antibiotic feed because they're not doing so well, and I've isolated them to another part of the facility. He would go up to them and pet them and rub them and stuff like that. He would talk to them like they were his own animals, but he knew it was a business at the end of the day. But he treated it very, very fairly. He treated it like it was everything to him, not like it was some big giant operation. And when one animal died, he was very, very upset about it. He was losing money. That animal lost his life from neglect or sickness or whatever it was. He felt bad about it. But this wasn't some big, giant, massive operation like Fair Oaks where they could care less. There's probably, on any given day, 50 cows having, birthing or something like that, to where, in another month, that animal, we'll replace that animal with another one. And then for Coca-Cola to come forward and say, we don't take any of our calves, our male calves, and send them off for veal, and then under investigation by ARM, find the truck that's taking the male calves from the facility to a Midwestern veal plant and dropping them off there. I mean, if it was me, there would be some definite big penalties going on here. You can't lie to people that are buying your product. You can't lie in general about this stuff and then hide everything. And then when you're found out, all of a sudden say, oh no, wait a second, this is not how we operate, this is not how we do things. For God's sake, you were caught on camera with dudes doing coke and methamphetamine and hurting animals or whatever it was that they were doing, slamming them down on the ground, throwing them up over in the trailer like they were rag dolls. You got to pay for this. It's time to pay the piper. It's time to bring people in, quality control wise, revamp the whole entire operation and start from the floor up, and everybody gets retrained. The whole facility comes in and gets looked at. Everything is brought back up to spec, if not better. And it's a continuing thing. This is not just all of a sudden you fix everything and then the problem goes away and then everybody, no. This is a monthly investigation. We're coming in here every 30 days. We want to see the paperwork. We want to see the animals. We want to see the facilities up to par. We want to see that you're doing everything to fix this problem, or else you're shut down permanently. That's how you fix this problem. And you stay on it. But unfortunately, people, big corporations with big pockets like this, the dog wants to go chase the duck. Big corporations with big pockets like this will pay people to shut their mouth. When you have these kinds of problems going on, you need independent organizations that are not getting paid by the government in those facilities to go in, third-party organizations that have nothing to do with them. They're not affiliated with them at all. Just like our grass-fed sources that inspect all of our grass-fed meats and stuff like that. The government got out of it years ago because the government didn't want to be part of it, because you can't guarantee that this is grass-fed, grass-finished. Well, there were other organizations that came about and said, you know what, at this point, we need somebody private to go in here and make sure this stuff is getting done. These inspections need to be done. If people are paying for grass-fed, grass-finished, that's what they need, is grass-fed, grass-finished. So that's why you see the little stamps and stuff on your meat and stuff like that now, that has a third-party organization that does nothing but specify 50 pages of certifications or more, sometimes even more than that probably, of this is a certified facility. They are putting out a product that they say they're putting out, and this is why our organization's here. Well, they need the same thing for these other inspection facilities, regardless if it's dairy or anything like that. The whole entire system needs to be revamped. They need to be shut down temporarily. If people need to be brought in, the whole entire facility needs to be retrained. That's how I would do it if it was me. We don't need to be supporting anybody that's doing this kind of junk like this. And if you can support local, you support local. You support local before anything. I didn't necessarily agree with a guy, but a guy made a comment the other day and said, if you can't live within 50 miles of where you, if you can't buy your food within 50 miles of where you live, locally grown and sourced, you're wrong. I said, you know what, I'm not going to be that person that polices people up and says, 50 miles is your radius, anything outside of that, you're wrong. No, I don't agree with that particularly. But I agree with, if you live in Rockford, Illinois, you should be trying to buy some kind of sourced meat, vegetable, fruit, whatever it is, whatever your thing is, from somewhere around there, because they have plenty of farmers markets, they have plenty of farms out there, You might have to drive 75 miles, you might have to drive 60 miles, 50 miles, whatever it is. But I know personally right here, I live in the middle of a busy town. I don't know what this is, 80 to 100,000 people here. I could, within 20 minutes, be at a facility where I can buy locally sourced, farm raised meat, regardless if it's conventional or if it's grass fed, grass finished. And I know what's going on with that product. These people offer me into their facility and they say, look, here, come look at it. Come look at what we got going on here. You can see everything. We're not hiding nothing from you. We're just a family-owned company, and we're trying to just do something for the community, for ourselves, make a living, do the right thing, and treat the animals correctly. And when I went out to All Grass Farms out west of here, it was amazing what they were doing with these animals. They were able to roam freely. They didn't treat them poorly at all. They didn't give them garbage. There was no antibiotics and stuff involved. Unless an animal was sick, they would separate it immediately and either use that animal for something else or fix the problem and not label that animal as grass-fed, grass-finished and do it from a conventional source. Even if it was just antibiotics and it was grass-fed and grass-finished, they would not put that out there on the product labeled as grass-fed, grass-finished with everything else. And it's just locally sourced is the way to go. It's the only way that you can get away from knowing or not knowing what's going into your food. And I cannot stress that enough. If you can buy locally sourced food, do it. The eggs taste so much better. The meat tastes so much better. It's just a better environment for the animal. You're supporting your local townships, your counties, your states, your neighbor, whatever it may be. And if you got a knack for it, maybe you can start your own little. I thought about it. I thought about going out west of here about an hour and a half and buying a little piece of land whenever I get set on my feet and get my own cow, get my own sheep, my own pig. So I know exactly what's going on. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not telling everybody to go do that, but there's nothing wrong with that either. Some people are able to do it. They just don't want to put the time in to do it. Look, guys, this world is a dog-eat-dog world, and people are out to chase those dollar signs. There are ways that these problems can be fixed if more people like me and like you step up and do something about it. Speak up. Don't keep your mouth quiet, because too many people I see on social media and stuff in general just say, oh, don't say nothing. Just don't worry about it. It's none of your business. Just don't say, why even support the aggravation of it? There are people that were born and raised that way their whole entire life because they don't want to speak up about things. But that's exactly why the world is the way it is today. It's exactly why. People just don't care anymore, or they don't want the aggravation of having to get in the middle of a confrontation. Confrontation is good. If you don't ever argue with your significant other, something's wrong. If you don't ever get in confrontation, have conversations with people about things that are going on in life, something's wrong. See something, say something, do something about it. All right, guys, that's my message. I've ranted long enough, but this problem can be fixed. Thank you guys for watching.